All right, guys, let's make a quick video. Drak plank build. Pretty straightforward. First batch of Drak planks, I centered the airfoil from front to back. So you basically got a tad hanging underneath and a tad hanging off the top when you build it. And then the next batch, I just matched the contour of the bottom of the airfoil. So look for both of these things. The reason being is this airfoil in the middle, since we did a blend, is a tad thicker. So I basically, I set the slip tubes in at two different placements, which were about a 1/16 of an inch difference, which I've flown both aircraft. It doesn't make a difference, but it was easier to jig them up if I put the bottom of the airfoil completely flat with the bottom of the plane. And at that point, you got about a 1/16 of an inch above on the top. Front end is aligned. These things will build exactly like the Hardcore 44. You're going to put the strip spars in. You're gonna put them in with CA. You're going to get all of these spars put in before you lock them in. You want to get all the spars set in the wings. You want to make sure the wings are all perfectly straight in their wing beds before you lock them in with CA. This is critical. You want to be able to, and that's what's nice, is once the spars are in, you want to be able to look down the leading edge and look down the trailing edge and make sure those damn things are pretty damn straight, if almost not perfect. And then your aircraft will fly unbelievably well. But first order, what you're basically going to do is slide your wings on to your fuselage with your spars in place and just make sure everything looks good and lines up. Slide them on without the slip tubes in place. I already got the holes drilled. Everything looks good. Just make sure it all looks good. Pin it in place. Take a look, see where it all lines up. And at that point, if everything looks good and you don't need to really do any adjustments, which even some of the adjustments, it's just a matter of pushing the foam around and manipulating the hole just a little bit. But I really haven't even had to do that much, even after the 8 we've built. Especially since it's been drilled, put up in a jig and all these holes have been drilled. So first order of the day would be to take these pieces of the slip tubes and after you fit all this together and make sure it looks good, then you're going to take the slip tubes, you're going to cap the top of them with a piece of regular clear tape of some kind, not a whole bunch, just a little bit on there. And then what you do is put about 5 or 6 drops of brown Gorilla down in each hole. So drop that Gorilla down in the hole. Right behind it, put maybe 2 or 3 drops of the white glue, any type of water-based white glue, and you're going to put that down on top of the brown Gorilla, and you're going to smear that in when you drive this. This is going to be pre-cut to about 8 inches, so you're going to smear that in as you drive this rod sleeve down into the aircraft. And the reason we're using Gorilla Glue is because it will expand inside this foam in between these two I-beam spars, and it makes a very strong area where the end of the spar is carrying the stress out from the I-beams out to the tip. So I've seen a couple guys already use Gorilla Glue. I mean, not Gorilla Glue, but the actual goop. They actually put goop in the hole and slid it in. I don't see them really having any issue, but my choice was Gorilla just because of its expansion properties and how it will actually get out in between the spars. So I've been gluing those slip tubes in prior to gluing all the strips and the fiberglass rods in the top and the bottom, So once those are in, while they're still wet, what I would do is slide the wing on like you have here. Pin them in place. Get it all straight. I don't care if, maybe wipe off a little bit of the excess glue out here, but pin that in place. And when you pin it in place, you're basically locking that in to be exactly where it needs to be. It should be almost 100% already there. And then if you get any Gorilla Glue expansion, make sure you only pin it in place for a half an hour or so, because you can pull this apart within a half an hour. And if you need to run a little razor in there, you can, or whatnot. But I've been pinning them in place to get them nice and straight onto the fuselage and making sure they looks good. So you're basically going to want the front even. You're going to want about a 1/16 on the top. You pretty much want the contour of the bottom of the airfoil. Like I said, there was the first few in the center where I actually centered I mean, first few in the first batch, where I actually centered this to where this was centered between top and bottom. So it was about a 1/16 of an difference off. But since I did the second batch, I actually changed the jig up a little bit, and I reworked it to where it's just matching the bottom of the airfoil, so it makes it even easier to align. So that's pretty much the build on that aircraft. After you put it all together, you're going to go ahead and sand the whole aircraft wing after you got the CA put down in there. Once the CA is put down in, it's all sanded, smooth. You're going to run a bead of Gorilla Glue across the top, just like you do on the Hardcore 44, and then rub that in. So you're basically going to put a rubber, a rubber coat across these main spars that go out to the wingtips to support the wingtips. And then after that, 3M90 heavy coat, paint, laminate. Just like I did on this one. This is my plank forward swept version, and there's the regular plank version. 55-inch wingspan. The Velcro strips, I put the strips in after it was fully laminated, so I just drew out where they needed to be, cut the laminate down into the wing, put a little hot glue onto the fuzzy side, stuck it down, put a little hot glue on the top of the Velcro, and then laminated right over the top of it. My Velcro that goes out onto the fuselage, I added about 3/4 of an inch of that Velcro just by widening I didn't even take the other piece off, the first piece that was on there. I just basically stretched that gap over a little bit more into the center of the fuselage so I could have a little bit longer piece of Velcro. And all I did was add another square about a 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch square and dropped it in there at the end of that run, and then glued it down. So I didn't do any major modification. I just made the hook patch on the actual fuselage a little bit longer, and then made the strips that go on the wing a little bit longer. This is my 2.4 bird. This is my long range bird. I'm running a 4S 5200. Damn thing flies forever. Dropped a 8x4.5 prop on the stock motor, and I moved the motor back a little bit. I had moved that motor back a little bit when I was actually running this set of wings on this fuselage. Just moving a little bit of weight back. Then I put this set of wings on this fuselage and decided to go ahead and keep it bone stock. It's 5.8, it's a close range plane. Got a 7.5 prop on it. Damn thing will cruise at like no amps. It's super light. It's running a 4S 3300. Just a very light version, and it's the plank. So it's more like an in your face, 1.5 mile cruiser. Works really good. Got this one set up with the Legend camera in it and an owl. Works great. I got the nose cone made for it just like this one, and this one's set up with run cam. Vector fully set up. Just a sweet thing. 60 amp speed control, little monopole antenna for the UHF. I used what are they? 12 gram servos. I don't mind the 12 gram servos. They work great. These things hardly have to work at all. I got them low on the front horn, high on the back. The only thing I did notice is the resolution is different than the stock standard servos I use in the regular Drak wing. So I think, I would suggest if you're going to use servos, I would go with the next size up. I would go with the park size. I think they're 27 to 32 gram size, maybe like the High-Tech 225. And the only reason being is the resolution and the throws. When you go from model to model in your radio, you're not having to sit there and manipulate like crazy. Everything's pretty close. This Drak flies on the same exact files that my small set of original wings for the mini Drak uses. So it crosses over nice. I got the same set of files. I run it on a gain. I change the gains a little bit when it's flying. You can dial it to where it's absolutely crispy smooth. And I have a takeoff mode in it. So I basically just flip a switch and gives a little bit of up reflex, throw it in 2D and give it a toss, and it takes off absolutely like butter. So there you go. They're unbelievable. I don't know which one I like better. So I got the close range one, and then I built myself a long range one. So being able to plop these wings on top of this fuselage, put it in a box, travel with it, or it just goes basically into an area just as the size of the fuselage, because the wings are not any longer than the fuselage. So you're basically, your biggest part of the whole aircraft is the fuselage. So wing packs up super nice. to be able to travel with, and boy does it fly good. I've been flying the heck out of it in the last few days. So you guys have any questions on the build, let me know. I just wanted to give you a basic lowdown. Most of you guys are already pretty crazy builders, and just wanted to give you a heads up on how I was putting these together. Most important thing is make sure these things are straight. Before you lock them in with CA, get all the strip spars put in. Make sure that you run your razor knife down through the slit if they need to be a little deeper, and just make everything pre-fit before you glue any of the CA in. Split the wing beds in half so you have a place to put these in. I found an easy way to make them straight is put it in the wing bed and then just run some pressure right down the wing. After you run the pressure down the wing, it usually gets them pretty straight, but then hold them up and make sure they're nice and straight and look down them. And once they're nice and straight, then you can lay them in the wing beds lightly, put a little weight on them, lock them in with CA. Once that side's done, take a look at them again, make sure they're straight, flip them over, do the same thing on the other side, then go ahead and do your sanding, your goop, your 3M90, your paint, and then your lamb. So, all right guys, let me know if you have any questions.